Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Leeson Learned. Thank you so much for being here. My guest today, stand up comedian, filmmaker, overall, just great human in general, Mr. Ryan Long. What's up, buddy?
Hello. Yeah, you got a fancy producer doing all your stuff for you. I've been
Yeah.
all of that stuff. I'm like so terrible at, but I got forced to do it all, and it just stress. It legitimately makes you 30% less funny
Yeah.
having all
Yeah.
that nonsense in your brain.
Yeah, I'm not a technologically sound
No, I'm
person
not
at all.
either.
I tried. I like started to try to learn stuff, and then I was like, it'd be just easier if I had somebody that knew what they were doing. So it just made way more sense, you know?
I had to become that against my. I'm gonna hire like a producer to do because even just like doing all the clips and all this stuff, but just from the amount of stuff that I'm naturally terrible at that I had to work really hard to get like mediocre at is, and I still am. But every 2 weeks I release a video with like spelling errors, or once I just really like once I ripped like a 30-minute file and uploaded it, so it was just a 5-minute video, and then there's 25 minutes at the end of just black screen. Dude, I do stuff like that so often. It's terrible.
Man, so when did you start learning that kind of stuff? Like how long have you been doing that now?
Well, all the audio, like all this new podcasting version is fairly new for everyone, I think. But I've been making videos since I was like really young.
Yeah.
But even that, so I just remember, just when I think back to some of the worst days of my life, none of them are to do with girls or anything like that. The worst days of my life are looking at Final Cut 7 before the codecs would work and just yelling at my computer and just being. I remember one time I go, I'll just buy a new computer. I thought that would solve my problem and it didn't. And just having like deadlines for things and just sitting in the. Those are some of the worst moments of my life. But then
Yeah.
now, then everyone switched to Premiere, and I basically had to do it all over again. But I started making videos when I was kind of like a teenager.
What was your first video you ever made?
Well, the first videos, no, they never got edited because me and my I was huge into filming, bothering people on old cameras, but you would just take the videos and you would hook it up to your TV and you would play it for everyone like that. So it would
Right.
be unedited footage. You'd be I guess what now people would do with their phone or whatever, but we would film all this crazy stuff. I remember one of the original ones was we took stole our parents' car and then we would do like an 80-point turn in front of a bus and just it was all like we thought we were Tom Green kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
Right.
wild stuff like that. But I think the first video I put on the internet when I was, probably in high school still was there was these construction workers outside of my house and they'd been there. There was a tree that fell and there was 9 construction workers all just standing there looking at the tree. And I cut that, I was filming it through my window and I cut that to taking care of business. And that went viral in my group of 10 friends. The original viral.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I remember I had a camera years and years ago that you could edit but on the camera. Like you could just
Oh
you
yeah,
had to
that's a
like
big
back it up.
function.
Oh, it was I remember that we did like these like character sketches one time and we filmed for like 2 hours and then it was like 4 days of trying to
Edit in the camera.
yeah, in the camera.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
you would
that
have to
sounds terrible.
save. Yeah, it was like you couldn't save it because it wasn't a file. You just like closed the camera and turned it back on. It was like wherever you left off. Oh,
Oh
it
my
was yeah,
god.
it was bro. That's why I have Dan now. It's for
Dude, every
things
comedian
like
basically
that.
had to become an astronaut in the last 3 years. It's
Oh yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, absolutely, man.
That's
But
one of the things I got lucky with is that I spent, a crazy amount of years learning to be a good filmmaker or whatever, and then that sort of randomly became important for being a comedian.
yeah, isn't it crazy? I mean, like
I
that
know.
that world of the DIY of this whole industry now is like the way that it is. Like years ago, people were almost shunned for like remember Dane Cook? Dane Cook was like
The
the
original
first
MySpace guy, yeah.
yeah, and people were like, "Oh, he got famous from the internet and he's not a real
Yeah, yeah.
comedian. And, he just sat around all day, like messaging people. And now it's like, you're shunned if you're not doing that. If
Yeah, it
you're
is a
not,
little bit the opposite, though. I do see, some celebrity or whatever, because internet's very like, are you good now, right? So there's a lot of people that are famous, and then you kind of watch the things they're putting online, and it gets like no interaction, and you go, you have to actually consistently be good. It's like they're a athlete that still has to play. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, oh, remember I was Michael Jordan. You still have to like play in the games. So these people put their stuff on, and if people don't like it, it doesn't resonate or whatever.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's such a crazy shift that's happened in the last few years in the industry, but a great for opening doors. More. I feel like more doors are open because it's up to us now to open them. I mean, you're a perfect
Yeah, it's
example
decentralized. I always have this conversation with people because, like stand up videos is a little less, but stand up's one of those things where people that were good at everything try stand up and it still takes like whatever amount of years to get good, even if you were just the person that was an overachiever your whole life. Like this still, where videos a little less, but it still takes time to figure out all that stuff. So it's always funny when people kind of ask me questions like, what kind of when you make those videos, like what's the cameras you use or what do you edit in? And it's like the equivalent of like a stand-up being like, so how do you hold the microphone? But they've never even, been on stage. There's like, I mean, here's what I recommend. Go back in time to when you're 15 and then start making videos and then do that every day for 20 years.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. If you can figure that out, then you're golden.
Yeah, you gotta basically decide like this is gonna be a project of something but I would say it's better that way. Like I know a lot of people that, blew up on YouTube and have big channels and they've started doing stand up. And I feel almost like bad for them because these people are popular. They have a pretty hectic like schedule for themselves. They've got all these fans. And then on top of that, so they're going to try to get good at stand up in the mix of that. So everyone at the very least had a few years if you're like good at stand up where literally that's all you thought about, you know what I mean? You kind of went to sleep thinking about it. And I think you need at least some period of that. Whereas with stand ups, I think you can kind of get good at video and while you're doing other stuff. But with those people, it's like they basically have like a 60-hour week job and everyone's paying attention to them and everyone's gonna be watching their stand up quick. It's very difficult for probably to do it, to get good at stand up when you're popular from doing videos. Like even when this year has been like super hectic and I've been like out on tour doing hours again. And I honestly feel kind of grateful. I'm like, fuck, I'm lucky that I had the, 10 years or however many years it's been before, it's like this where things are too hectic to like actually get good.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And how did you find it? Like once you were able to go back, did you go back right away to the states that started opening up first and just hit those as soon as possible?
I basically took off the very first part where when everything shut down, I was the same as everyone where it was just just focused on other stuff and whatever, lived a normal life, which I always say was kind of funny because you do the first few weeks of like watching TV at night and stuff, and you're just like, oh, this is way better than that life I've been doing. Like that is an unappealing life doing stand-up comedy. But then I started touring like pretty quickly. So because a lot of places never closed down, right, in America. So I feel bad for what's like the way it is in Canada right now. Because so maybe 4 or 5 months, but pretty quickly I started doing stand-up, and there was a lot of like underground stuff even happening here. So I started doing stand-up, and then I started touring properly, probably like 8 months after a pandemic. And then I moved to Miami for a while, and everything's completely open there. So yeah. And then now in New York, things are basically back to normal. Like there's curfews, but it doesn't really affect, and like limits on how many people are there. But for doing spots in the city, like who cares? I guess if for a money thing, if you're, if you only want to tour for money, you make less money because there's less people there, but I don't know, whatever.
Did you notice any kind of shift in audiences, like how they were, how they acted, or?
Well, I didn't really have an audience before the pandemic, so a shift in my audience it's existent. I'm like selling places out now. It's cool, but before the pandemic, I had just moved to America, right? Like I used to headline clubs in like Canada, but when I moved to America, I was just kind of, I got passed at a lot of clubs and I was just working, like doing that, right? I was doing like the New York club scene, and that was only 6 months before the pandemic. So I was just kind of got passed all the clubs. I was doing that stuff. I wasn't really, I never toured. I've never toured America headlining clubs before I was doing it to people that came to see me. So I don't really know what the shift would be like, but probably my guess would be in places like New York and more places like that. People are more hesitant and more, but I'll tell you, cause I've not been worried about, like COVID in that sense. I mean, there's everything shut down, so it's not like you're doing much anyway, but I was kind of like, I don't, just hanging out with my friends and stuff. Like I'm not worried about it. I wouldn't be like always washing my hands every second like that guy. And I remember I did the Stress Factory in New Jersey, and it was like 100 people. And I did like a hanging out with people after. And that was the first time where like 80 people came up and they want to shake my hand. And I was like, yeah, I think I've been telling everyone I'm not afraid, but I was like a little bit like, all right, this is a lot. I don't know if I'm shaking 80 hands.
Right.
So they don't care at all. You go to those places and everyone, it's basically like it didn't exist. People in I was in Tampa Bay like 4 months after, kind of near the beginning, because they like never shut down. And we did a theater, and you'd go to a bar and it would have a sign that said masks. I remember going up to the bar and just being like, oh crap, I can't find my mask. And the bouncer being like, yeah, I mean, this sign's just for show.
That's awesome, man. I loved how Florida,
they don't give a shit.
Oh, it was amazing to watch them just open up. Texas too.
I know.
But yeah, Florida is definitely the best place. You mentioned doing a theater. So when you're doing,
that wasn't with me though. There's this guy, Dick Masterson. He's got this big following, and he does a once a year, like, he does not a stand up, and he does a meet and greet with everyone. So it was me and Danny Polishuk and a few other dudes. So he basically put this event together with all people that he likes and stuff like that, and then sold out a theater. But a lot of it was like people flying in and stuff like that. And we did a set and a live podcast. It was kind of a different thing. I'm doing comedy clubs.
That's awesome. But selling them out now, like that's where
a lot of them. Yeah. Basically, it's kind of, I'm selling out clubs again, like it's not full capacity, so it's not, but if I was doing, like, for example, in like a place like Philadelphia that's a pretty big like metropolitan, like we sold out the shows and then added new ones. But then when I went to where was Magooby's, Baltimore, but it's like outside of Baltimore, which is like smaller, we sold out half the shows and half of them were decent, you know what I mean?
Right. That's awesome, man. And are you like, how is it for you now when people are coming specifically to see you? Because when you're doing stand up just as a touring comedian and people are coming to just see comedy, it's probably a lot different than if people are specifically coming to see you.
I think the main thing probably is you can work on new stuff easier, because so you can kind of, because I'm trying to ink out a system. When I was before this, I was really very seriously like Thursday to Sunday, 3 shows a night, and so things are like very hectic right now. So with when it's your audience, imagine you're just like headlining Absolute, and if you did like a pack of new stuff in the middle at 10, the club owner's kind of like, what are you doing? Right. But if it's people that came to see you, they would be like, if they were like, what are you doing? You go, what the fuck do you care what I'm doing? Like, these people paid to see, it's none of your business what they're doing. Right. So they don't, once you sold the tickets, it's no one else's business what you do on the stage, kind of. Right. So you would never they would go out to your agent being like, oh, he didn't do good. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, people come sell out these places that barely do stand up. It doesn't matter, right? So obviously you don't want people that come to see you to get a crappy show. But if you're confident in like, okay, let me work on new stuff and blah, blah, and then I'll kill at the end again and whatever, you just I think you have more freedom to try things and actually work when the people came to see you, just strictly from you have no one to answer to on that front.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome, man. You mentioned you mentioned an agent. Are you now with like, do you have American management agent, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And what was that process like? Is that something where they saw you, came to you, or did you have to submit? What was that like?
Dude, they all work in unison. Like literally, probably when as my numbers kind of went pretty high, I would say, it would just be like all the usual suspects kind of hit me up, and then I met with three of them. I started working with one guy for a second. That was a manager, and then we kind of I parted ways with them. And then I found another one. But I think the agent's more important than manager. Like I don't want to audition or anything like that. So agent's probably the only real thing that you need, which is just they book your shows. And I got a guy that's kind of cool, and he represents people that are a little bit troublemakers to some degree. So there's a less worry of always worrying if like things are gonna piss them off or whatever. So none of that's a problem.
Right.
And then manager, I'm trying to. I don't know. It's a weird thing in general because there's all these different worlds. Like there's the mainstream world, and then there's the comedy world, and then there's sort of like the alternative industry, and all of these things kind of operate differently. And YouTubers sort of operate in their own space, and they sort of their business model is becoming merch companies and doing sponsors. And then there's the industry people. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what it was. I think that was the problem with the first people I signed with. They were just trying to like, they would just ask me to do stuff, and I would kind of be like, okay, I'm not doing that. And then, but I would always feel, I even said that at the beginning. I'm just like, listen, I just don't want to like enter a relationship where I don't want to do what you want from me, and then I'm constantly telling you no, because it just I don't like, it's like having a girl, like imagine you're busy 5 nights a week and you have a girlfriend that wants you to do stuff 7 nights a week. At the beginning, you kind of need to be like, listen, like I don't want to be in a scenario where every night I go to do stand up, and every single night you're like, ugh, you know what I mean?
Right.
And you kind of feel like that, where they go, hey, you audition for this thing, and you go, listen, I told you I can't really, put those things in my schedule right now. And then they go, no, this one's really good. And I'm just like, I don't want to have this conversation again. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of was. And you'd meet with people, and then at first I would do it a little bit, and I would leave the meetings, because especially with the industry where I go, there's a lot of places that really like people like me right now, where you kind of feel like you flourish. And then there's other places in the industry where you kind of feel like they don't even, you're the last person they would want to work with. And then you meet with these people, and it's like, what am I doing this for? Like I'm begging them for, I don't know. So It's just, it's like a lot of these pieces just like have a system, and it fell apart a little bit. And I think they're trying to figure out what to do with people like me as well. But I don't have time to be part of like these people's experiments in the new industry.
Right. Can you give me an example of just sort of a nightmare meeting you had to sit through that you knew from the beginning, this is not going to go well?
It was almost the opposite with these guys, where they I guess what I've seen is they sort of, when someone's got like a buzz around them or whatever, they sort of trot you around to do meetings with all the Hollywood people or whatever, right? And a lot of comics, I guess, they might have meet you with or introduce you to showrunners and directors and producers and people that you can kind of figure out. But I'm like, I've made a bunch of TV shows, and I've been a filmmaker forever. So I'm like, I don't need any of these people. Like I have a whole crew. And then, so I would meet with I met with some of the big production companies or whatever to potentially talk about doing a shows or whatever. And they were very like, oh, we love this guy. They're kind of like laying it on thick. And then 2 or 3 of them, I go, these are the 6 ideas that I've been circulating, or that I'm kind of thinking about doing. We're actually talking about making this movie. We have like this, I told them my story, and it's very like, oh, so fun, okay, send us that pitch. We love that. You know what I mean? Then I'd send them. And then afterwards I'd send them, and then I'd message the manager. I'd be like, what's going on with that? And it would kind of be nothing. I go, oh, that's just what this is. They did that 4 times today. You know what I mean? It was just that's what this game is. They just have to, which is what it was in Canada. But when I moved here, I was like, well, I don't know. This guy seems pretty confident. Maybe it's different. But my instinct was I moved here to like not be part of that system. And then he was kind of like, no, this system loves you. And then you kind of meet with them all and you go, no, they don't. They're just pretending they do, you know?
Right.
And so, and that game is a lot of effort. I mean, you know, when you're busy, you go, let's say you meet with someone and they like a pitch and you got to write it. It's like, that's a day. You know, how many times can you spend a day and to chase something that I don't need or whatever? So I think one of the problems is, and I'm not in this category that I'm about to say, but a lot of people in America that kind of got successful in their own way, they're all rich now. You know what I mean? So before you take like a Comedy Central or something like that, if you got like a show deal, it'd be, or whatever, like a show at, you know, Bell Media or something, it'd be a big deal. But really it's, you know, spend a lot of effort to make 200 grand or whatever. Maybe it gets canceled. You do a lot of bureaucracy or whatever. And you go, these deals are less appealing when these people are millionaires. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, hey, do you want to take a huge pay cut to, you know, fight against the grain like every step of the way? And then maybe it not even be as successful as what you're doing already. So I think the incentives are all kind of like out of line with these places. So that's part of, and they sort of look down on it. I heard an interesting comment from Pete Davidson, who I see like around New York a little bit. And I think he seems like a super nice guy. But he said a comment. I know he's like he's at SNL and he's like, you know, star, I guess, whatever you want to call it, right? And he was at the Logan Paul fight and he was kind of like talking about Logan and Jake Paul. And he was saying, oh, real celebrities hate them. Like real celebrities look down upon them. Like they're nothing kind of thing. And it was interesting the way he put it. I was like, if you're 15, like you know who Logan Paul is just as much as him. But it's like, that's how they see it. Like one's better than the other, where you go, you know, Logan Paul probably has more money. Like he maybe has more reach. He might have more cultural relevance. Like, I don't even know what all the metrics are, but it's just this like old way looking down at this new thing. Like it's worse. And I go, I don't really know if that's true anymore. You know, if you said, who are the most relevant comedians right now? I don't know if, you know, I guess you would probably come to mind people that are not really, you know, industry darlings at all.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, like Andrew Schultz would immediately come to my mind, who is
yeah, he's the best.
You know, he same type of deal. Like he's talked a lot on different podcasts about not getting festivals and, you know, certain you know, Comedy Central, Premium Blend, any of those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And really made his own way on YouTube and is selling out huge venues now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. And I think that, you know, there's people can look at it any different way. I feel like a lot of people that I talk to, they kind of like want you to pretend you're a victim. You know, everyone wants to be like, oh, it's hard for me. And I guess everyone has their own version of it's hard for them, right? But there's so many benefits to the fact that I think, I can't remember who said this, but it's like, there's always been, you know, the hot up and coming comic move to Hollywood, be like, I'm too cool for school. The same thing in bands. Like, I don't need a major label. Like, I'm going to do it myself. Like, you know, screw that. Right. And then the next thing, I think it might have been Whitney Cummings talking about Patton Oswalt. And she, you know, that crew was like, we're too cool for school. And then, you know, now he's in Ratatouille or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. But the difference is now that those people aren't even being asked. So it's easier to be cool. And then you get to really, it's like you're super popular and the industry's like, ew, those guys. So before, you know, I've had those times in my life where, especially recently, where I'm just like, should I do that for money or whatever? And I try to have, principles or whatever to stick to what I want, because then I like lose it. But it's a lot easier when you're not having millions of dollars offered to you. And especially since, so a lot of these people aren't being offered these things, which allows you to, by the time you are being offered, it's like you're so formed and you have money and you have your whole setup that you kind of don't need them anymore. I think that's happening. And then that was a little bit that, but I feel like more than ever, some of these people, by the time the industry wants them, it's like I was saying, it's like, you know, they have an empire now.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this episode of Leeson Learned. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching the show. I'm just having a quick coffee break with Rampage Coffee, my favorite coffee in the world. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this company, but they're doing huge things. It's a husband and wife owned company. Canadian owned, Canadian made, baby. Owned by a husband and a wife together. They work together every day. Could you do that with your husband or your wife? A lot of you are shaking your head right now. You can't believe it. These people work together day in, day out. Delicious specialty coffee, roasted fresh and delivered right to your doorstep. You can become a Rampage Coffee member and subscribe to get coffee delivered to you as often as you want at a discounted price. You can also earn Rage points and use them to buy coffee and merchandise like this hat, this t-shirt here, which is, I love it. It's my new favorite shirt, and a coffee mug with a gun on it. How many coffee mugs do you have that have a gun on the side? I bet the answer is 0, because that was my answer before I got this. They've got a high caffeine blend that'll kick your ass in gear. They got medium, dark, and espresso blends. Espresso, I always say espresso, but it's espresso. You can try all 4 of the blends in the sampler bundle. I have tried it, I recommend it, and I recommend you get some. Head on over to their website right now. Get yourself some coffee right to your doorstep. And a huge thank you to Rampage Coffee for sponsoring this episode of Leeson Learned. This episode of Leeson Learned is sponsored by the Big Fish Steak and Lounge in Sarnia, Ontario. One of my personal favorite restaurants in the world. I was going to say in the country, but no, in the world. They have some of the greatest food I have ever had. Every single time I eat there, I think to myself, it will never get better than what I have just eaten. And the next time I go back, they top it once again. It's that good. If you live in the Sarnia area, make sure you book your reservation for lunch or dinner, or hell, book your reservation for both right now. Do it tonight. What are you going to cook for dinner tonight? Probably something awful. Don't do that. Head on over to the Big Fish Steak and Lounge. If you don't live in Sarnia, I suggest you make a trip down just for the food, or if you're going to be in the area, stop in and have one of the greatest meals you will ever have. I want to talk a little bit too about your videos, which are amazing. First of all, I've seen tons of them. They're awesome. I love the man on the street ones, especially.
Oh, nice thing.
Yeah, man. I just find those absolutely hilarious. And I'm curious, what was kind of the first one, the first video that you saw go viral or do really well?
That was the one. I did this one. I said, who has nicer titties, Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris? And then these ladies came and like interrupted me, and they were like yelling at me, and I was kind of like trolling them, and that one like has like a couple million views in it right now or whatever. That one went big. But one of the reasons, so that stuff that was what I've been doing before any of this. Like even when I was was young, I was like releasing all these DVDs, doing that kind of stuff. And then I did some like TV shows in Canada that was all bugging people on the street stuff. So when I came to America, I didn't really know anyone. I didn't have my film, because then I moved and I was making sketches and all that sort of stuff. But when I moved to America, I didn't really know people. I didn't have a collective of filmmakers that I've spent my entire life, building or whatever, right? So I was just kind of figured, well, what could I do? And that seemed like, okay, I know how to do this bugging people on the street thing. So it felt like a easy thing to do in the absence of having like a network of people. So that's why that was one of the reasons I thought that would be a good thing for me to do to kind of build when I moved here.
And then when did you start with the more sketch style?
So that stuff was kind of doing well. And then I did, all my clips were like all my stand-up was going viral on TikTok a lot. And so I go, okay, well now there's a big enough audience between people, because people in America were kind of pushing people to my platform and the podcast circuit or whatever. And people were very embracive to me or whatever. So I felt like between all that stuff, I had enough audience now to, maybe launch something. So then I did like a string of 8 or 9 sketches just for TikTok. They were pretty, like in one day. I filmed them all in one day. And then one of them did like 200,000 or whatever. And then after all that, then I had like 10,000 subscribers on all my things. Then I go, okay, I'm just going to do exactly what I was doing in Toronto. I felt like I was at a place where no matter what I was going to do, like 20,000 people would see it, which is enough for it to go viral if it was good. So I kind of went back to I kind of slowly just introduced all the things that I was doing in Canada back into what I was doing here. And then I think the first big one was this one that said I said I was selling footage to Fox News and CNN, and I was selling them like different parts. Yeah. And that one did really good. And then there was this other one, Wokes and Racists, and that one kind of like did wait. That was the biggest one, but there were 2 or 3 before that kind of helped like build the channel. Because when that one went viral, I already had like 50,000 subscribers or something.
Right. I love that character, the guy that's like being interviewed, like you're talking off camera about all the things that all the things that you're doing. And the CNN versus Fox News one I thought was absolutely, I think they're all hilarious, but
thank you.
There's something about the way you play that character, because because you can just picture that guy like being a real person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I try.
It doesn't.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's great.
I've said that's what I think. A lot of people try to to say that what I'm doing is talking about politics, but it's what you said. It's always people. And that's why it's the same when I was doing videos with the Hard Times about like punk and musicians and stuff like that, or then when I did my CBC show about Toronto stuff, and then I kind of did the same thing here about the culture that we live in now, where everyone's very jazzed up about politics. So I'm always talking about the kind of person and what they would do. And I think that that's one of the things that I was always critical of in other people's stuff that was mainstream, where they would kind of make fun of something and it was like, no, you don't know that guy, you hate that guy. So it's like they're just like they're doing an impression of someone that they hate, whereas I feel like I don't like hate any of these people. I'm just kind of like, I feel like I a little bit know the motivations, or I'm able to, that's why it's like, some people call you a flip-flopper, because even on my podcast, I kind of will always like take different sides, or I'll switch my opinion. And then people that want to weaponize you will call you like a flip-flopper. But it's, if anything, that's when I'm writing scripts, you're doing the voice of different people. And if one of those people you kind of understand and you get what they're coming from, and the other person you're a caricature of, then your things aren't going to be good, right? Right. So it's like if you're writing an argument between like a guy and his girlfriend, the girlfriend can't just be saying stupid stuff that doesn't make sense and the guy's like right. You sort of need to be able to understand both the people. So I think that the best people are sort of able to do that. I guess it would be like when you steel man people's arguments or whatever, when you kind of actually understand where they're coming from, as opposed to like saying what you're like not generous version of what you think they think is.
Yeah, that's what I like most about those the videos, and especially the guy, because there's a couple of them, right, where you're being interviewed as a guy, talking about something that you're doing. The Fox News and the CNN one is the perfect example, where it doesn't come across to me as something political, where it's like, because I don't give a shit about politics at all. I don't care who's president or prime. Like,
but it became intertwined with culture, so that's just kind of what happened.
And then the people, and then the people, like that guy, that character just seems like a genuine, like, person that would actually do this, and that's what I think is genius about it.
Yeah, because if you think of like, even take something like QAnon or whatever, right? Like, whether it's right or wrong isn't funny, but the fact that your aunt is like really, really into it is funny. Right. Just, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, to me, it's, it's not that funny that you don't like Trump, but it is funny that that's your entire identity. Like, to me, that's
Yes.
funny that or that you love Trump, whatever it is. The fact that, this guy became your entire like world, that's funny to me. So I
Yes.
think that always goes back to the person. Yeah.
Yeah, I love a good character, like I love a good real person who cares so much about something that they'll
Caring
do
a lot is funny. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. If if it's real, especially like if it's a real person who is like really fucking gung ho on something and uses a term like gung ho, I love that, man. I don't think there's anything funnier, and that's what I love about.
Totally, because as soon as you get religious about anything, it's impossible not to be hypocritical.
Right.
And not that we aren't all hypocrites, but as soon as you're this, no matter what, it's impossible for you to not be a hypocrite in some way, because something's going to prove a part of it wrong, and you can't, it doesn't matter. I'm this no matter what. It's just with anything, right? Like anyone that's a die-hard Justin Bieber fan and they'll die for him. Like, that's funny.
Right.
But with the
So
politics stuff, I think I was doing those like two-sided videos for like, I did a lot of that because people always kind of say, it's like, oh, so you're saying both sides are right. And I was like, no, I was saying that people that become indoctrinated into either side are losers, kind of, is more what I was saying. Right. But that was a side, because if the mainstream side is you have to think this system of things and you go, oh, you guys are both bad, like you might as well just say you're on the other side as far as they're concerned, because It's like there's a lot of you're with us or against us mentality.
Yeah. The when you're writing these, are you, because I know Danny Polishchuk, who's a terrific comedian, and he's in a few of these with you as well. I love the way you guys interact with each other too. I think your chemistry is amazing.
Thanks, dude.
Are you guys writing them together? Is it the two of you? Do you have like a team, or how does the writing process work?
Danny does my podcast with me right now, the BOYSCAST with Ryan Long, and he's on tour with me, and he's in most of the sketches. But in terms of the actual production, I just so I do one a week, and I write and direct and edit them and everything.
That's awesome, man. Then
yeah, it's a bit of a grind, but because we're doing other, especially with all the other stuff. Like, we're trying to make a movie right now, and then I was touring for a full month, so it is like difficult. I'm trying to figure out, but it's. So I'll do, 3 at a time. So I had my best system was I did 4 in 2 days, and then I edited them. So I did 4 sketches in 1 week, but that was my whole week. And I was kind of like, all right, if I could get this system down. So it is kind of tough, but I can't really just hire an editor or whatever, because that's kind of the whole thing, is the way that I edit them and everything. So it's tough to like expand out. If this was a podcast or even talking to camera, whatever it is, you could kind of hire a team and expand it. But I think for what I'm doing, it kind of has to have me involved in the editing, because it's just as much of the comedy as the writing and the filming.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, is the amount of effort and time and energy that goes into that. Cause I think a lot of people might look at what you're doing or whatever and just think, people probably think a lot of things, whether they don't realize how much time and writing and all that kind of stuff that goes into it. So I think that's really and amazing for you that you're willing to put that time, effort, and energy in. Like, this isn't luck, you know what I mean? This is hard work.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you just put your, like, try not to think about it too much, because then it's, you're this, how you with stand up, I'm sure, where you go, when you start, it's like, oh, this is a lot. So I write every day, and then I go every night, and then you got to come up with new, it's like, it's hard, but eventually it just becomes kind of part of your system. So I think it does help to give yourself the boundaries. Like I said, I do 1 a week, because there's lots of times where I'm like, I could probably do another one this week, and put another sponsor, make more money, or build your channel more and go viral, whatever it is, right? Especially if something's hot. But it's like, I try to, if you put the boundaries on, I feel like that helps in terms of being a hard worker, where you go, I do this one thing a week, I do this, and then maybe I do interviews on this day, and you try to put like structure on the whole thing. I feel like that makes it more, at least it doesn't just seem like an endless supply, because stand-up's already never ends. So everything can't just be, you can always do more, because I think that's like not a great place to sort of, not a good space for your brain to be, where it's like there's never a moment of I couldn't be doing something else. Whereas like if you have, this is what I do this week, you can finish it and then you go, okay, well maybe I will work on stand up, the one thing that I kind of don't have caps on. But yeah, no, even when people a lot of people don't like the, you know, troublemaker people that are kind of going against what you're supposed to say or whatever. And it wasn't about me, but they were someone was talking about them and they were like, those guys are what's wrong with comedy. And it was just like so funny to me. They weren't talking about me, but it was like, you know, felt it. They were, you know, and I was just like, dude, I like write 3 hours a day. I like film every week. I spend 2 hours editing, and then I do stand up 5 nights a week. I'm touring. We're making a movie. I've released hundreds of hours of content, and I go, yeah, we're what's wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the problem.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Fucking troublemaker with your goddamn scheduling and your hard work.
I think, yeah, a little bit, but I don't know. Depends. You just got to look at your personality. I think I have a decent personality for working myself to the bone, whereas some people probably wouldn't want that.
And you've always been a hustler. Like I've known of you even before I met you. I knew of you just from your shows here, stand up, like being everywhere, like always at different clubs and stuff. I mean, that's way before now. That goes a long way back. So, and did you start in a band? Did you start?
Yeah. When I was like 20, I was in a pretty popular band called the Johnstones in Canada.
Right, the Johnstones, yeah. And so you guys were touring, like you must have been touring then too, right?
Yeah. We were the band was, we were on like the MTV Countdown and stuff, so we sort of had like a moment where it was pretty popular.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's certain people that, I don't know why, but there's a lot of them in LA especially, but where you just kind of you think you can do everything, I guess. Like I never, you know, you kind of are just like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be in a popular band. I'll do that. And then you go, you know what? I want to have a TV show. Okay. You know, I think I'm going to do stand up. I'm going to do that. And you actually just stand up. Then you're like, oh yeah, this is a whole thing. It's going to take 10 years. But I kind of, I felt like New York. I kind of felt like, saw what was going on. I'm like, yeah, I want to go like be part of that. And I don't know. So I think maybe you obviously make changes because the thing changes and where you fit in better probably it depends on like outside things. But yeah, I think there's something to be said about just follow through, where it's like you're not like, oh maybe I can do this, where it's, I don't know, I feel like if I felt like I want to start a company, if I go, you know, I want to start a restaurant, I feel like I could do that, even though I don't know anything about restaurants. I feel like I just think I could do things,
right? But you're also doing them, you know.
Yeah.
You think you can, then you do them. I mean, that's, you know, I think that's where a lot of people fail, is they might think they want to do something, but then they'll immediately talk themselves out of it in some way. Like somebody might go, I want to do a video every week. I have to film it. I have to write it, film it, edit it all of myself. But what about 2.5 Men, you know, like when am I going to watch that? I don't know.
And you go for what? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that like decision paralysis thing too, right? Because there's this thing where, especially when you're in your 20s, it's kind of like, well, what if I pick the wrong thing? And it's like, it doesn't matter what thing you pick. You're going to get better at the other things from doing something, you know? So I think, I probably look back and I go, the amount of time I wasted doing it wrong, but you got better because of that and you don't do it again. So I think there's it's like to stand up. I feel like I always bring everything back to stand up because it is such like the purest like art form or whatever. But how many nights have you gone out where you like worked for 3 hours on something, took it to the stage and you go, oh, this is nothing. You know what I mean? So then if you get in your head, well, you know, that show might be crappy, or like there might be no worth it, or this might not be worth, right? It's like anything could be not worth it, but then until it's not. And then all of that stuff is, you know, if you're going to start a business, maybe it's the third one or whatever, but I think it's probably always doing is better than not doing. That's some Gary Vee shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was edging on some Gary Vee stuff right there.
Are you a Gary Vee fan?
No,
No.
I like those Silicon Valley guys. I like. I probably listen to it less now because but I liked Tim Ferriss. He like the 4-hour work week guy.
Yeah.
Him and I like James Altucher, who now that was kind of cool about moving to America. It's some of the people that I've known for a while. I'm kind of like friends with now or whatever. Like James, he was like he owns a comedy club and he has a big podcast and all this stuff. And I've read all his books and he reached out being like, oh, you're super funny and do the podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, dude, I'm like a huge fan of yours. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people like that. And that was kind of cool. But I thought that he had a book, Choose Yourself, which is kind of, the title sounds kind of corny, but it was all, I felt like those guys were very good at teaching like a new way of thinking. It's like, kind of like when university's at its best, it teaches you like how to think instead of just like what to think. But the best way to describe it was I've had a lot of problems where, let's say even just with your friends or whatever, where you go, all right, okay, you know what? I think I have a slot Thursday. Like maybe we'll hang out and it's kind of like the people will be like, what? So you're slotting me in? And there's this element of you're kind of becoming a robot. And then I think those guys kind of opened up the idea of like, well, yeah, ideally you kind of make those decisions like intrinsically as opposed to always putting them on graph paper. But you do have to think of things like that. You know, you have to decide who you want to be. Like how many hours a week do I want to socialize? Like how many nights a week do I want to spend with my chick? How much stand-up do I want to do? Whatever it is. But the idea that, that should just happen naturally is for people that it doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that I don't know if permission is the right word, but I think those guys kind of opened me up to the idea of like, okay, yeah, but you know what? Like I wanted to do stand-up Thursday. I'm going to do stand-up Wednesday to Sunday, I think is what I was doing when I was in Toronto. And then when you make those decisions, like something would come on a Tuesday, it'd be like, oh, with this show, and you go, oh, you know, maybe I should do that. I go, no, I don't. I just don't do stand-up on Tuesdays. That's not what I do. And then I honestly started getting so much more productive and so much better when I started actually putting like limits on what I do. And, you know, this is the night I hang out. This is the night I do this. And how much am I going to call my mom? Like all those things sound crazy to think about, but they really, you know, if you go, make sure you do this, make sure you call your mom once every 2 weeks, at the very least, you know, then
right.
You at least, then you get them all done. And yeah, but it feels a little gross, but I don't know if there is another way to do it.
I don't think so. And I think, you know, anything I've ever heard about success or, you know, from successful people, discipline is always their number one, usually the number one thing. And that goes right hand in hand with scheduling. If you create a schedule, stay disciplined within that schedule and actually do the things that are on your to-do list and actually schedule time for each thing, then you're way more likely to be, you know, successful at whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I think that is the way to do any of this.
Yeah, I think so too. You just have to figure those things out to some degree, or else your life's just going to constantly be a mess.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Especially the world where you're, you know, have something due every week and there's almost no way to do that without being a little robotic about your systems. So even with the scripts, like, so I want you want your videos to be good. Like I don't want it to suck, but I think about I think about everything, but then once I crack how I'm going to do, I won't spend more than 2 hours writing a script. So I do 2 hours to write the script, and then I film the script, and I won't spend more than a day editing. So when I sit down to edit, I'm like, I'm not going to be doing this tomorrow. Like this is going to be exported tonight, and that's just that. So maybe it could have been better, but that's allows you to do more things or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also eliminates the very small details, like, you know, looking at everything 100 times where you end up spending 2 days on something that you could have done in a few hours and gotten it out. And I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, the South Park guys in their 7 days to air, those guys have the system. I think the one guy's a little more messy, and the Trey Parker's kind of the the hold the ship together guy, it seemed like. And
Yeah.
he was saying it's the same. That's why they were very, we only do them in the 7 days to air. We only do it in the week, right? Or whatever, however many days to air it was. I can't remember exactly. But was it 7? Do you know what I'm talking about? Was it 7 or 4?
I do, and I think it's 7. Yeah.
I think it was 7.
Yeah,
but they go,
sounds.
yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, sounds right.
But they said, yeah, he was like, you could spend 95% of the time to make it 5% better. But once it works, like, it's kind of binary a little bit. It's same with like jokes where you go, it's not like you make it 1% better. It's like, it doesn't work, then it works. And once it works, you can toil forever to make it a little bit better. So I always kind of, I won't, if my script doesn't work, I won't film it. But like once it works, then you got to be able to be quick with it, I think. Until it works. If it doesn't work, you weren't ready to make it, Do
you have a favorite sketch that you've done so far? Just as not as far as like what it did views or any of that stuff, but just one that you, as you were writing it, when it was done, you're like, I think this is really great.
The ones that I like the best don't do the best because you know how the internet is.
That's
like the things
the
that
way,
do the best. Yeah, the things that but a lot of times comics will like them the best. But I'll tell you what always makes me laugh the most, probably in general, is the gassing guys up. Like whenever I find a guy, and I've done this like 2 or 3 times where I even when I'm editing, it's like makes me chuckle so much. But like when you find a guy that's like bragging about how many girls he slept with, and I'm just like, dude, that's so sick. Like I love that like game or whatever you want to call it, where it's you get a guy and he's like, yeah, I slept with that girl. And you're like, what? Dude, that's so sick. And then, you probably had sex with tons of girls. He's like, yeah. And you get them like bragging. That always makes me laugh. and then I had a guy that he was weird about, he's saying he's not gay. And then I don't even remember how it got there, but he was like, yeah, I know people thought I'm gay, but I'm not gay. And I'm like, me too, dude. It's like, we're not gay. It's like just a couple guys that aren't gay. It's like so weird that people think we're gay. We're not gay. Like just guys like that are afraid that everyone thinks they're gay is always funny to me.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of shit always, like probably the more silly stuff always makes me laugh. And then costumes, anything with costumes I like. I always like to, especially people always make fun of me. Like my chick will make fun of me. Is like all your characters are like the same guy with like a different hat or whatever. Like I just do the exact same thing because it's all about the writing, really. But it's
right.
they're all the exact same. But it's this same guy dressed as a banana this time or whatever, right? Or a cop or whatever it is. So I think that I don't know, costumes always make me laugh where it's just, even when we're filming, it's kind of just, you're standing there and you're just like, something's just like intrinsically funny about the music I'm putting back to these grown men just standing in these costumes. So a lot of times that like bone funniness or like, like Garrett Jameson, that's why I always loved working with him.
Oh yeah.
Because those guys, I don't think I have that, maybe a little, but not as much as certain people just have that. I just filmed a sketch with this guy, Ian Fidance here, and he has that same quality. And my friend Max used to have it too, where they can be outrageous and it doesn't seem like they're overacting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas if I act like I'm like flipping out, it just seems like I'm overacting. And certain people, they just have so much funniness in their bones and they sort of look like a character, I guess, too, that like they could be rolling around and you wouldn't be like, all right, like it's actually works. So there's certain people, filming with those guys always make me laugh, where it's like they can yell in everyone's face and have a big flip out and be knocking over tables, and it's actually funny. It doesn't seem like they're overacting. So that's probably my favorite. Whenever I'm working with that type of guy, and then I like write the script where they're like over the top, it always makes me laugh.
Do you get a lot of people that send you messages or leave comments thinking you are the character that you are playing? Like they think
No,
that's you?
so.
No. Okay, good.
I get a lot of people sending me messages with script ideas, and I'm not kidding. Like 10 a day, a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one that was good?
Yeah.
That you were like, this could work?
2. I saw 2 that were 2 from the same guy, believe it or not, but one was already made. So I'm not. I would say at this point, over 1,000, because legitimately 10 a day. over across platforms, how many people send me them. And they're always missing something. They're always just one dimensional. Like there's not more to it. But the one guy sent me an idea for a script, and then I was like, that's pretty funny. And I made it into a street interview. And as I'm saying it, before I say it, this is the problem with the internet, is I look back at things I did 6 months ago and I'm like, oh, why would I make that? But that's because, especially when you're part of the cultural conversation and you're trying to be like ahead of it, you said it, maybe I said it when I thought it was like an itch that no one said yet. And then that kind of gets in the realm of public opinion or whatever. And then maybe some other people, it's not obviously taking credit for like changing culture, maybe like one or twice in my life, maybe, but like I did a bass player support video, and that kind of becomes like a little pin of that culture or whatever. Right. But
right.
But then it becomes almost a mainstream. Then it becomes, if it catches on, it becomes mainstream. Whereas now, if you made that joke now, you're like, really, you're saying that now? So a lot of times you look back and it seems almost hack, but at the time I feel like it wasn't. Maybe sometimes it was. But this guy sent me a video saying that diversity in torture chambers would be funny. And then I did like a street interview saying that they need more female torturers and like advanced interrogation and stuff like that. And I got girls kind of like saying that there should be more girls. That girls could torture too or whatever. That was the idea. But since then, the CAA released their thing saying like we're really diverse or whatever. So that joke kind of became like an internet meme now. And that's what I was saying. I'm like, so now I wouldn't want to make that because it would feel like over treaded water or whatever.
Have you, during the street interview videos you've done, have you ever had someone like just a crazy reaction from someone, or has anybody ever tried to physically attack you or anything outrageous like that?
No, not that I can think of. No, there was when I was doing I'm a little less crazy now than I was when I was younger. I was talking to this guy Danny Mullen about this because you kind of get less wild as you get older, but hopefully you get better at a rate that like offsets it. So it's like I'm funnier and I have more tricks in my bag and I, quicker on my feet. But I don't. Whereas when I was before, me and my friends used to do on all the getting kicked out of places. Like one of our only gags was like, hey, let's go to like a store and cause trouble until the security guard kicks us out. And you know what I mean? So when we were in that game, I was like a regular component of it. And I had all these techniques where like cops would come and I knew how to take the card out of the camera really quickly and replace it with another one and then show them that I was deleting the files in front of them. Like, but I used to be able to do it like behind my back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you used to get good at all that stuff. But in that game, it was kind of always, but I would always roll with 2 or 3 people. So it would be a little less unsafe. But now the street interviews are getting a little harder, especially in New York, because a lot of people like know who I am now and I don't do costumes. So I go to Union Square and it's not that everyone knows who I am or anything. It's that like a group of 5 guys will, and then they'll like stand there and watch. And then I have to literally be like, hey, like, I can't do this with you. But you do that. It just like all that stuff just sucks. And I didn't even really, I never loved doing because I'm 35 now. I didn't love doing the street interviews that much anyway, but it kind of popped off and I get a lot of messages like do more street interviews. But a part of me is like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's just been sketches and stand up. But it is hard. Yeah. You do that and people like kind of, come I've had this happen a bunch where I was bugging someone on the street and then someone else will come up and be like, hey, yo, it's Ryan Long. And I'm just like, dude, I'm trying to pretend I'm doing like a project for my university. Like, and then they like blow up the whole thing. Or worse, I had a guy that I was bugging and he was like a little too on the nose. And then I'm like, oh, you know who I am? And he was like, yeah, I'm playing along. And you're just, like things like that.
Right.
So I might have to get into like disguises.
That would be awesome.
Well, that's what everyone else does. Like whatever, all the other people that do this, they have all these disguises kind of.
So is that how you get people to talk to you? Is it, or was
I
like
just walk up and ask, mostly just, I think I'm like tall too, so I'm like a little menacing. But I
Right.
just come up and I'll go, "Hey, what's the blah blah blah?" And I think if it's the right question, you sort of. I think there is this old. It's the art of clowning, is what they call this whole like bugging people on the street stuff, right? But the trick, there's a lot of the trick is to ask them questions where a not replying is like, let's just say this wouldn't be a street interview question, but if I said, "Are you racist?" Not replying implies you're racist. You know what I mean? So you can't be like, no comment on that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would you say no comment? So that would be like an extreme one. That wouldn't be a question, but there's a lot of questions where you sort of put people in a situation where it's like more awkward for them not answer than it is to answer maybe. So I mean that, or sometimes you don't even have to. Sometimes you just, people are happy to talk. Sometimes they walk over to you. You know what I mean? They're like, what are you guys going on here? But yeah, there's a bunch of different ways.
Have you ever had someone go really hard on something that you couldn't even put out, where you were just like, this is a little too
I'm more
too much?
conscious now that, because so if I sketches do more, but I would say every video I do, probably, let's say a street interview that doesn't even do well, probably does like 300,000 or 400,000 people or whatever watching it. So I'm like conscious of, I don't want to like ruin someone's life. So I don't like, that's another reason why I'm like, it's a little less fun now. Cause even like, you know, Ali G, who I honestly think is the best that ever did this, but he was doing those, he was doing the kind of like finding people on the streets and kind of making them seem racist and making them look racist, or maybe they were racist or whatever. Right. Or making them really like blow up something that ruined their life. Yeah. And I guess I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to like ruin someone's life where they get fired from their job or something. Cause I won't make someone look bad to the point where I think it'll ruin their life, but maybe, or kind of like try to misrepresent them because it feels kind of mean or something.
Right. Yeah. Do you have to make them? Do they have to sign something from you?
Not really for the internet, because it's like consent. Like, if it was hidden camera, it's a little sketchier, and I don't know the exact rules. But when you're doing hidden camera, that's why there was like on YouTube a lot of hidden camera channels were getting killed, because the legality is a little more complicated. But if you walk up to someone and answer them questions and they answer interview questions in front of a camera, like the consent's implied. You can't be like, I didn't know you were filming. It's like, well, you did though, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like there's a camera in front of us and you're talking into a microphone. So the consent there is implied. But there's all these things are a little wishy-washy, right? It's all based on like precedent of what the last case was and what the last judge ruled. Then, I mean, ideally, I don't want to be in court, period.
Yeah. That's good to avoid in general, is any type of court appearance.
It's all very complicated. Like the satire law. I remember I learned a lot about this when I was doing my other show of like what you can show and what you can't. But it's still wishy-washy. And if you don't have, like, I have a lawyer now and I've called him for like a few things or whatever, but it is like if someone sends you a cease and desist and they're going to sue you, you're like, even if I'm wrong, like, do I want to deal with this? Like, I don't know. Or even if they're wrong. So I don't know. You got to play it case by case or whatever. Try to somewhat operate into what you think is the laws. But also I try to operate in like a little bit of, do I want to live with, you know, I just don't want to karma of like getting some guy fired from his job, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Good to avoid for sure. You don't want a bunch of people messaging you like, dude, I just got fired because of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually if I'm making people look stupid, like they're still saying points that are like you're allowed to say. Maybe I'm just kind of trying to wrap them in circles, or it's the opposite where it's just them like bragging about fucking chicks or some weird shit like that might be like kind of embarrassing. But it's never anything where like if them saying this on camera is going to ruin their life, I don't think.
Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this. I've had a great time chatting with you.
Thanks,
and I appreciate
buddy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish I could come back. I honestly I'm like so pumped for when they open up to just kind of go back to the Toronto comedy scene and like, you know, do spots. And it just sucks that it hasn't been able to happen. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's
are you in like just outside of London right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm inside of London right now.
Oh, you're like, are you in the city of London, like downtown?
Yeah.
But that's where you live?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. For now.
Like right outside. Okay.
Yeah. I was in LA last year when everything happened, and
Did you stay there for a while?
I did. Yeah. Things shut down, and then I stayed there till right at the end of March. And then,
oh, that's way better.
Yeah, me and the guy that usually opens for me, his name's Ty Wright. We were going to be touring, and we had like 80 shows canceled in March, like all over the US. So then we just came back here and just kind of regrouped, and then I'm going back to the US again in September.
Oh, nice, dude. And
Yeah.
you're going to go to LA?
All over. I'm going to tour a bunch of places, but ultimately,
oh, you're going to go on the road in LA?
Yeah.
Or in America. Nice,
Yeah.
dude.
And then back to LA for sure. I felt like I was really kind of not, I wouldn't say picking up steam, but I was making a little bit of leeway there.
Yeah.
Just networking and stuff, getting some good contacts, and
then this happened.
Yeah. So and it was like everything there shut down right, like pretty much right away
and they shut it right down too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not like Texas.
No, not at all. Not at all like Texas. No. Yeah. And then we ended up having shows in places that all, like, we had Michigan and Colorado and Wyoming, like a bunch of places that ended up just shutting down for at least the times we were supposed to do the shows. And then over the course of the year, a few places aren't in business anymore. And then we're just figuring out the other stuff. But
well, dude, if you have the best format for doing internet stuff. I mean, like if you could get your YouTube channel popping, because you do crowd work all the time, like every show you do is 3 clips. Like you have the ultimate system like that. The crowd work guys are the YouTube stand-ups built for you.
Yeah. We've been doing it now pretty consistently for about a year and a half, like trying to release.
Yeah, no, I've seen on Facebook a lot of them doing really well.
Yeah.
I was just talking about that the other day, where it's like people were like, oh, why are all these comedians doing crowd work now? It's like, well, because writing 3 minutes of stand-up takes maybe a month and a half, and writing 3 months of crowd work takes 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's great, man. Well,
so much better.
Yeah, again, thank you for being here. If people want to subscribe, the YouTube channel is Ryan Long, and
Ryan Long Comedy.
Ryan Long Comedy. And then where can people find you on social media?
It's all at Ryan Long Comedy, and then the podcast is the BOYSCAST with Ryan Long.
Perfect, man. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations, dude, on all the success.
Brother.
It is.
Yeah, I hope I see you soon.
It's fantastic, and all of your stuff is just killer, man. I love it. So
I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks for having me on.